Hello! In this video, we are going to discuss about complex sentences with adjective clause. So, I'm Charlene Romaini. I will lead you to learn about complex sentences with adjective clause. So, what is complex sentence? So, a complex sentence is a type of sentence in English that consists of independent clause and dependent clause. So, let's see this example. So, in this example of sentence, this is complex sentence that have independent clause and dependent clause. The independent clause is the woman is my neighbor. And the dependent clause is who helped me yesterday. So this is the complex sentence because there is two clauses, that is independent clause and dependent clause. And what is an adjective clause? So an adjective clause is a dependent clause used as an adjective in a sentence. An adjective clause can serve two purposes. The first one is to identify the noun, and the second one is tell more information about the noun. In the complex sentence with adjective clause, there is relative pronouns. So relative pronouns are related to nouns. They introduce phrases that describe a noun. You can say from this example, the relative pronoun in this example is who. So the woman who helped me yesterday is my neighbor, who is relative pronoun and who explain the woman. So an adjective clause in this sentence is who helped me yesterday and who as relative pronoun. The woman is noun and an adjective clause explain the noun. The noun is woman. So, relative pronouns introduce phrases that describe a noun, and therefore, the relative pronoun in this sentence is who. So, there are common relative pronouns who and whom. Who and whom will used for modifying person, whose, that for modifying person and thing, which we can use for modifying thing. For when, we can use it for modifying time. And relative pronoun where, we can use for modifying place. So the first one of relative pronoun is who. Let's we discuss. So who only used for person as subject. It means the for person as subject before the relative pronoun or a person as noun before relative pronoun. So who, relative pronoun who, need a verb after relative pronoun who. Let's we see this example. So the farmer who takes care of the cows is on my basketball team. So in this sentence, adjective clause is who takes care of the cows. You can see it in the red words. And then this is also as dependent clause. And the farmer is on my basketball team is independent clause. So the farmer is subject of independent clause, and who as relative pronoun, as adjective clause that explain the farmer. So after the relative pronoun who, we must place the verb. So the verb in this sentence is takes. The second relative pronoun is whom. So whom only used for person as subject. So the subject is person, not the thing or place or time. So the relative pronoun, we need a subject after relative pronoun whom, and whom do not show possession. You can see this example. The girl whom you saw at the mall with me is my sister. So in this example, the girl is my sister is independent clause. And the girl as subject of independent clause. And then there is adjective clause. You can see it in the red words is whom you saw at the mall with me. So in this adjective clause, the relative pronoun is whom, and we use whom for adjective clause because the subject of independent clause is the girl, that is a person. So we use relative pronoun whom. And after the relative pronoun whom, we must to write you. Write the subject. So the subject in this adjective clause is you. And then we can use relative pronoun of whose. So whose only used for person and thing as subject. So when you see the person and thing, you can use whose. So if only person and thing as subject, I mean. So whose, when we use whose, we must need a subject after relative pronoun whose. So in this relative pronoun, it show possession. So for example, the girl whose mother is doctor is my classmate. So remember that the girl is my classmate is independent clause. And the dependent clause or adjective clause in this sentence is whose mother is doctor. You can see it in red words. So whose as a relative pronoun. Why we use whose in this sentence? Because we explain the girl. The girl is a person as a subject. So we use whose, and then after the relative pronoun, we can write the subject. So the subject in this adjective clause is mother. So the mother is the possession of the subject, the girl. So what is the girl that your classmate is? The girl whose mother is doctor. So, and then we move to the relative pronoun that. So that only used for person and thing as subject. So we need a subject or verb after relative pronoun that. That introduces information necessary to explain a noun. So for example, the man that I met on the bus today works at the World Bank. Remember again that the man works at the World Bank is independent clause or main clause. And then the adjective clause or dependent clause in this sentence is, you can see it in the red words. The adjective clause is that I met on the bus today. So in this adjective clause, the relative pronoun is that. After that, we can conclude I as subject. Why we use that in this example, in this sentence? Because that used for person and thing as subject, we conduct the information necessary. So what is the man? For example, I say the man that I met on the bus today works at the World Bank. So I cannot say the man works at the World Bank. When I say the man works at the World Bank, the person that listened to my talk when I talk to her or him think that the man in general, she or he does not know what the man that I say about. So when I give the information after the man, so I say the man that I met on the bus today works at the World Bank. So I say the man in specific way. So in conclusion, the person that I talk to, him or her, know that the man that I talk is that I met on the bus today. So remember that the man in this sentence is the subject in the independent clause of. So the independent clause is the man works at the World Bank. And then we can use the relative pronoun which. So which only used for thing as subject. So we need a subject or verb after relative pronoun which. So which introduces extra information about an already specific noun. So in specific noun. For example, my new car, which was a gift from my son, needs very little gas. So in this example, in this sentence, the dependent clause, you can see it in the red words. So adjective clause or dependent clause, is which was a gift from my son. However, the independent clause or main clause is my new car needs very little gas. So my new car is the subject of independent clause, and which is relative pronoun in adjective clause. So after relative pronoun, you can write a verb or subject, but in this example, there is verb after relative pronoun, so it's okay. And then you can write like commas, so it can separate the independent clause from dependent clause. So the dependent clause like separate from the independent clause. So in this sentence, there is extra information in the form of adjective clause. So which was a gift from my son also explain my new car. And then we have relative pronoun of when. So when only used for modifying time. So when we discuss about time, when the subject or the object of independent clause, you can use when for relative pronoun. So let's read the example. She will always remember the day when the accident happened. So in this example, the independent clause is, or the main clause is, she will always remember the day. So she as the subject and the day as object in the independent clause. However, the dependent clause or adjective clause is when the accident happens. So you can see the adjective clause in the red words. So the relative pronoun in this adjective clause is when. So we use when the object is the day. We explain the day. So the day show the time. So we must use the relative pronoun when to explain the day. So after when, you can write the subject. When the accident is subject. So remember that adjective clause is when the accident happens. So the last relative pronoun is where. So where only used for modifying place. So the example is I visited the town where my grandparents live. So in this example, the independent clause is I visited the town, and the dependent clause or adjective clause is where my grandparents live. So you can see the adjective clause in the red words. So in the independent clause in this complex sentence, the independent clause is I visited the town. So I as subject and the town as object. So in this sentence, adjective clause where my grandparents live explain the town. Explain the object. The object is the town. So why we use where in this sentence? We use where because we explain the subject of a place. A place is the town. And the subject in the adjective clause, this adjective clause is my grandparents. So there is comma rules. When the adjective clause is used to tell more information about the noun, commas need to be used before and after the adjective clause. So for example, the otter, who has a body built for swimming, are often found along bodies of water. So in this example, we use commas. So you can see the commas after the word the otter and after the word swimming. So in this example, the dependent clause or adjective clause, the adjective clause is who has a body built for swimming, is separated by commas from the independent clause. The independent clause or main clause is the otter are often found along bodies of water. So in this example, we can know that the adjective clause of who has a body built for swimming explain the noun or the subject. The subject is the author. So the author is the subject of independent clause. So remember again, the independent clause is the author are often found along bodies of water. And the relative pronoun is who for the adjective clause. So this is quiz time. So pay attention to the question and answer the question correctly. Are you ready? So we start again. So the first question. 1. You did something yesterday. 2. It was very brave. The correct answer to combine these two simple sentences into complex sentence with adjective clause is A. What you did yesterday was very brave. B. You did something that was very brave. C. You did something yesterday and it was very brave. So I will count from 1 to 5 and try to think the correct answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see the answer. The answer is B. So the correct answer to combine these two simple sentences into complex sentence with adjective clause is B. You did something that was very brave. So this is adjective clause. A is wrong because this is noun clause. We can say in the bold word what you did yesterday. So what you did yesterday is a noun in this sentence. The sentence is what you did yesterday was very brave. And then C is wrong because this is compound sentence. So remember again that compound sentence conclude of two independent clause. So the independent clauses in this sentence is you did something yesterday is the first independent clause, and then it was very brave is the second independent clause. So we can see it by the connective word of and. Let's we discuss. So we are going to discuss the why the answer is you did something that was very brave is adjective clause. So let's we see the adjective clause and the dependent clause. So in this sentence, the independent clause is you did something. And the adjective clause or dependent clause is that was very brave. So in this example, in this sentence, you as a subject in dependent clause and something is the object in independent clause. So that was very brave, or this is adjective clause or dependent clause, explain the object. The object is something. So the relative pronoun in this adjective clause is that because the object or the something that explain the object or the noun is something we can think it is person or thing, but it more related to thing. So the answer is you did something that was very brave. We next to the second question. 1. My friend missed the lecture. The second, she borrowed Sam's notes to review. The correct answer to combine these two simple sentences into complex sentence with adjective clause is A. My friend who missed the lecture borrowed Sam's notes to review. B. My friend who missed the lecture borrowed Sam's notes to review. C. My friend borrowed Sam's notes to review. So what is the correct answer? You can try to think about the answer. I will account from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me see the answer. So the answer is A. My friend who missed the lecture borrowed Sam's notes to review. This is the correct complex sentence with adjective clause. B is wrong because my friend whom missed the lecture borrowed Sam's notes to review. So whom is not correct relative pronoun to write in this sentence. So whom must followed by subject, not by verb. So when we use who is correct because my friend is A is correct because who explain the subject of person. So after who, after relative pronoun of who, we must to conclude the verb. So the verb in this answer A is missed. So this is the correct answer. But B, when you use whom, you must followed by subject. Whom is correct to use to subject that that is the person, but when whom, after whom we conducted, we write the verb like missed, it is wrong because whom must to followed by subject. And then C is wrong because my friend borrowed Sam's notes to review. This is the simple sentence, not complex sentence or complex sentence with adjective clause. Let's we discuss. So in this answer, my friend who missed the lecture borrowed Sam's notes to review. I have explained to you why this is the answer, why this is complex sentence with adjective clause. Because, so let's we discuss together. So in this example, so in this answer, my friend borrowed Sam's notes to review is independent clause. And the adjective clause is who missed the lecture. So this is also the dependent clause. So in this adjective clause, we use relative pronoun who to explain the subject my friend. So my friend is a person. And then we use who because after who there is missed. Missed is the verb of adjective clause. So we can write relative pronoun of who. And remember that Sam's notes is the object of independent clause. Remember again that independent clause is my friend borrowed Sam's notes to review. So this is the last question. I have always wanted to visit the big house. Blah blah blah. Julio lives. What is the correct relative pronoun to complete this complex sentence with adjective clause? A, when, B, where, C, whom. I will count from number 1 to 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Time is up. Let's we see the answer. So the answer is B, where. Where for modifying place. Because you can see before the relative pronoun is the big house. So the big house is place, not the time or not the person. So the answer A is wrong because when we use for modifying time, and C is wrong because whom used for modifying person. But in the question, in the sentence, the big house is place. Let's we discuss together. So I have always wanted to visit the big house where Julio lives. So remember that independent clause in this example, in this answer is I have always wanted to visit the big house. And the dependent clause or adjective clause is where Julio lives. So in this example, in the subject of independent clause in this sentence is I, and the object in this example is the big house. So the adjective clause explain the big house as an object, or we can say as a noun. And where, we use where as a relative pronoun in this adjective clause to explain the big house, because the subject or the object or the noun is the big house. The big house show place. So we use where after the object to explain the big house. And the Julio is subject in this adjective clause, and lives in this adjective clause is verb. So remember again that adjective clause in this example is, or dependent clause is where Julio lives. So this, we near to our last time. And then when you have any questions for me, you can write it down on the comments below. So thanks for watching my video. See you on the next video. Bye bye.